I'm into conspiracies that are logical. Does that make sense? Because
No,
I've paid
I don't mean right
attention
now. I don't mean
to
literally,
a
but I
lot
mean
of that
what?
stuff since like the early 2009s.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've noticed almost 100% of the time, there is stuff they get right at times. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, like for the big stuff, you get to that date and they move the goalpost down the street. And you're like, wait a minute. And they just build up like 10 years of like, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And then
it's like the Bible guys who say,
come on, dude.
it's like these Christian churches. They'll say the end of the world is like this March 30th. The end of the world is coming. Give me all your money. We're going to go to the spaceship. We're going to do whatever. And then the day comes and everyone's like, dude, there's one senior scam guy. He made all these seniors pay him. And now the seniors are like, I don't have any money.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. So like, yeah, so the conspiracy stuff's in there, but it's, again, it has to be logical for me. Like,
so you don't believe in it?
Here's a perfect example of a conspiracy that came true, right? So for the longest time, they're talking about like all these underground tunnels under Walmart and stuff. They're going to turn them all into concentration camps for Americans and all that crap.
Come on.
And then a bunch of them closed down in the South, right? In the South border, and they're like, it was plumbing issues. And people are like, no way, dude. None of that's happening. So everyone's freaking out about this. And, months go by, nothing happened. What a surprise. Like, just like everything. And then, I don't know if you remember this news article. You remember when they were keeping the migrants at the closed down Walmarts? Remember that?
Wow.
So they were right about what they were going to use them for, just about the people where they were wrong. So it was for the migrants to be there. And then once that was a thing, they're just like, that's not Americans. We don't care. And it's like, wait a minute, you kind of had it right. But
yeah, you kind of had it.
Bad thing still.
Well, it's probably 50-50. Probably half of them were like, wait, migrants? Who cares? And then half of them were like, no, it's still a story. We got it right.
But you just never saw anything about it really after that on any of the YouTubes. Again, like a lot of the big ones, like the date comes and then they're like, oh, it didn't happen. And they're like, oh, it's because so many people knew. And it's like, dude, no. If you give a billion people the information, let's say the top of the elites or whatever you're still not going to change enough people's minds, and they could still take over the world if they wanted to.
And they're the ones promoting it.
It doesn't matter like how many people know it. It will never be enough to make a difference in whatever they're planning,
Well, excuses. I mean, your conspiracy didn't come through, and now you're going to say, oh, the vibration was too high. So many people knew, and then the alien said, no, we don't want to go now, and we will coming in 2 years. We will be there. Like that's
right.
Or like, you can always be right.
They got that mysterious planet that's going to come ruin the world. Like, oh, it's coming this summer. And then the summer comes, they're like, we were wrong. It's every year.
Yeah. But, the reason I was asking, though, about the conspiracy thing is because, you were saying earlier that you're having this manic episode.
Right.
And you're making up this story. And the story that you made up almost feels like a QAnon.
Right.
Like, do you know the story of QAnon?
It was like living a QAnon fever dream before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
you're the star.
Like the whole time, when these other people, again, like I think the police are angels. So that's a weird part of the conspiracy. But I'm also on top of paramedics, and everyone's like part of my little play, and we're fighting the devil and all that, and that's who are that's ruining things or whatever. So I get out of the police station. Eventually, I end up at a Verizon or something or a store. I get out because the radio is singing about me going to get a gun and doing something like messed up, and I'm not violent, so I like freak out. I'm like, oh my god, like that's when I stopped and had a moment of clarity. I was like, something's wrong. So I called 911 and I said, there's a problem, like I'm freaking out. And the people they send are police officers, not ambulance. So they show up, and I go back in the episode, and they detain me to bring me to the hospital. I'm not arrested. They detain me and bring me to the hospital. I ended up in the hospital, and they have like an emergency in another room, so the cops take off. So I try to leave, and they weren't about that. And then I shoved a cop because I thought, but now I'm thinking they're trying to kill me or something. This is where the police was bad.
Yeah.
And then they hog tie me and take me out to the police car, and I go to jail, and I don't know any of this. And then like I kind of black out with some memories, and I know I just end up in like a solitary confinement cell for 2 weeks having a full episode. With
2 weeks you went in.
Yeah, I was gone 2 weeks. I lost
the white privilege ran out. You ran out the white privilege, and they said, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Still, we have to do something.
But I mean,
You had to hit them.
when you see all these things going on in the news, like police are showing up and shooting people on mental illnesses and stuff, and it's kind of like, I didn't call for the police. Like, if an ambulance had showed up, maybe that would have been best. But because the police showed up, I still ended up in jail.
Right.
I just literally, I started getting delusional. I thought I was in like purgatory, and I could hear the train to hell going by my jail cell all the time.
Oh my God.
I thought it was like bad, and then it was crazy. It was so
Dude.
It was so nuts. And then like
That's
when
nuts.
they finally figured out who I was, because I didn't have any ID, I obviously wasn't in the right state of mind to even know who my name was. So, and their fingerprint machine wasn't working, because as soon as they get those fingerprints, they're gonna be like, boom, he was in the military. So,
and then they have respect, right?
They finally got the machine up, and they got me to do the fingerprints, and they figured out, and they had to bring me out of my my cell in a wheelchair. I was so exhausted. I lost 20 pounds because I wasn't eating. Like, oh, dude, it was so bad. And I was like,
exhausted from what?
Into the world, because I thought
you're training
Jesus or something. I was like, because like during all this stuff, like I'm also having voices in my head, and they're like putting me through these tests, and I don't know what's going on. And
they make you work out. They're like do 100 push-ups.
I started training because they're like, you got to do important stuff. You got to fight the devil and stuff. And like, it's like
that'd be so funny if they came and made you work out though. They're like, I'm a personal trainer from God.
Well, I was also having hallucinations of people coming to my, like I met the devil a couple times. That was like, so at the end of it, they're like, all right, like, we're going to tell you now, like, you're Jesus Christ and you've come back. And I was like, oh man, is this what it was all leading up to? Like, this is crazy. And then I'm like screaming and yelling and crying, like, I don't want to be Jesus. I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to, like, literally, like, you tell somebody they're Jesus Christ if it was real, they'd be like, this is awesome. And I'm like, no, I don't, that's a lot of work. Like, I got tits. Like, I don't. You
didn't want to do it. You didn't want to be the third coming.
So
you thought it was too much pressure.
Like, well, we're gonna come get you, and then we're gonna blow up the world. Like, the world's.
So these are just the voices in your head, not the cops.
Right. These are voices in my head, and I was like, no, I don't want to leave. I'll stay here and take all man's sins, and everyone else can go to the afterlife. Where the hell's going on? And then like, that was the right answer, because I guess they were doing these tests before, and everyone's like, of
course, they always do testing.
Leaving. I'm Jesus, and I can leave. I'm leaving.
They always do tests.
The test. You're Jesus.
That's great. Okay.
So, anyways, but yeah, they had to take me out of my cell in a wheelchair because I was so exhausted.
They're like, now we know you are righteous. Every day he does 200 push-ups, and he does this and this, and he is right. He is Jesus.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So, they get me to a VA facility, and they're like, they released me out of there and said, oh, the reason you went crazy was you smoked marijuana. So I had to drive 6 hours back to where I was from. I was able to come down enough from just being exhausted for those 2 weeks. I was able to normal out, and I didn't know I was crazy still. Like, I remember like getting on the phone with my mom halfway back. It's like, I don't know if I'm crazy. I don't know if there's something in my food. Like, I don't know what just happened. And then I went to Seattle. Some stuff was still kind of messed up. So I went into the Seattle VA, and they're like, you have bipolar. Like, you need to be on meds. Like, we should probably put you in a unit right now. Because like, you're just about to go back into another episode. But luckily you leave, and I was taking my meds, and I chilled out, and like, my life was destroyed when I got out of there. I was like, everything was messed up. So, and it fucks with you, because when you come back.
Do you blame this on military though, or Iraq, or you just had it?
I mean, they don't,
because it sounds like Vietnam. Like, have you ever seen all the movies after Vietnam? It sounds like that's what it was.
I had to fight for years with a lawyer to get them to recognize that my military service probably contributed to me having an episode of bipolar eventually.
Oh, they don't admit it. They're like, don't even say that.
Well, they thought it was weed related. They're like, you're crazy because you smoke weed. Of
course, the military people blame the weed. Oh, of course, the military.
Yeah. Surprise.
They say because you're smoking that pot, hippie.
Yeah,
that's what did it.
And over the years, over the episodes I've had, which I'll tell you about this, the last one I had too. Over the years of the episodes I had, actually, the thing that always was the same is I didn't have medication in my.
So the meds work.
Yeah, I haven't had an episode in 7 years, since 2015. In that episode, I got naked in Chinatown and tried to steal a car. And they came up to me, they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think I need help." They're like, "Yeah, I think you do." And then like the ambulance came, and I had been walking so much that last 3 days, I actually had rhabdomyolysis, which is where your muscles start to break down and poison your kidneys, and you start to die. And I was in critical care for like a week. Still didn't know who I was, what was going on, so I almost died on my last episode.
Right, and 7 years lithium in your.
No, it wasn't all lithium. I've been on a couple different medications. One actually stopped kind of working about a year back, and I almost had another episode, but I didn't know it wasn't working because, again, it was even slower build up because it was still kind of working.
Yeah.
And then it was giving me these awful anxiety attacks where I just couldn't do anything. Like 2 hours after take the meds, I'd be down for 6 hours. I'd be like, couldn't do anything. It's crazy. So but it wasn't on lithium. I don't know what I'm on something now. I can't really remember what it is.
Well, you were saying earlier, too lazy to watch TV even. Or not too lazy, but like in a way.
That was after that was probably my third episode. So I had a couple back to back when I was.
But how can Iraq like? So is this some kind of PTSD? Like, is it like going to Iraq?
I have PTSD too, but it's from what I read about bipolars. It can be brought like it. They don't think it's genetic, but you can have disposition to it, and then if you're put under enough stress and strain long enough, it can eventually cause it to come out.
Wow.
So usually you find out in your early 20s.
And the moral of the story is, you are loved because you are loved. Such is the nature of loving kindness. Okay? So now that I've done my karmas, make sure you do your karmas. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and sign up for meditation. Ascension is upon us, foolish. Sign up for meditation immediately. Ha! Am I still here?